Good afternoon, this is Clay with Clay's AC and Auto Repair and Clay Motion here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If this video is helpful, please like my video, send me your nice comments. Most of all though, subscribe and share. I greatly appreciate your subscriptions. Remember, if anybody else can do it, you can do it too. Don't be the next to them, be the first to you. So we're going to show you how to fix some stuff right here on this Jeep Grand Cherokee that we're working on. This particular one is a 2005. First year of the Jeep Grand Cherokee, and if you can tell by the side there, it's a really nice truck, very worth putting the money into. We're going to do an axle on this, and I'm not sure how this video is going to break up, but we got a blown out axle boot, so we're going to replace that. We're also going to be removing the front differential in it, so if this video doesn't include that, you can look for it on my thing. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to show you how to take out this axle, because that's the most important thing. And then it might lead into me doing the differential. I don't know if I'm going to break it up or how I'm going to do it, but obviously you don't need to know that. You want to reach out to me, hit me up on Facebook under Clay's AC and Auto Repair. I'll be happy to answer your questions if I can. You leave questions in the comments, I try to get to them. And I just try to show you how to do things, and I'll show you how to work. So first thing that we obviously did, remove the 19mm studs that hold on the wheel. Now we're going to remove the tie rod, and I'm going to show you a little trick on removing that without actually breaking it, so we'll stay tuned for that. So the next thing we did was we took a 21mm, we took off our nut for our tie rod. Now we're going to grab a big hammer. Now we're going to take our big sledgehammer and we're going to hit right here. What we don't want to do is destroy this bushing, and this outer tie rod is actually very good and stiff, so we want to keep it that way. We don't want to use a pickle fort because that'll break the casing on here, so we're going to strike it as hard as we can right here, and Jeff is going to hold the camera, and hopefully all we have to do is get back. We're going to heat it up on the inside, and then it just pops out. Okay, I was barely applying pressure on this knuckle to push this up. It just heated this up and sent shock waves through there, and then allowed that to go up and out. Stop it. Now we've taken out our two 14mm bolts that house our brake caliper, and just as a little side note, a little trick, you take a flathead screwdriver, put it in the cooling fans of that, give it a little tug, and that's going to slide your brake pistons back, and that's going to make the caliper come off a lot easier, and also make it better for installation because we're not replacing the brake pads on this. If we were, just as another side note, if you were going to replace the brake pads and rotors, before you take the caliper off, take the hammer, strike it in between the brake pad and the rotor, and push in your caliper pistons. The reason that's good is then when you're having to push in the caliper pistons, you can push them both in at the same time simultaneously, and when you go to reinstall your new brake pads with your rotor, you don't have to dink around with using a C-clamp or anything to push in your pistons. You can do that. You just put this inside here. Once you get it drove into the middle there, just hold pressure against it, and eventually it's going to work its way back if your brake caliper is good, just so you know. Now we're going to remove our two 21mm that hold our caliper bracket on. I recommend you use an air tool for this. Now we've taken our 36mm nut off of here. We have put our bolts for our caliper bracket back inside the caliper bracket itself, wherever I set it, right down there on the ground, just to keep them out of the way. Note, when you go to reinstall this, look up the torque specifications. It's very important. This is a bolt-in hub, and you will crush the hub if you over torque this nut here. It's probably 150 foot-pounds, could be 85, somewhere right around there, but it's important to retorque this to proper specifications, or at least don't over tighten it because you'll press it together. Okay, next we're going to take the 18mm nut that holds our upper control arm together, and then we're going to simply strike it the same way we struck our get that off of there. Now, one thing that's important is you really want to use air for this, because if you spin it slow with the ratchet, more than likely you're going to ruin this ball joint because it's going to start spinning inside there. So it's best to have air to be able to help with this, or at least a half-inch drive electric impact, something that spins very quickly to drive that nut off of there and hopefully not spin that. But obviously you could, if you have a pass-through ratchet, you can hold the Allen wrench right here and spin that off too. That's probably like an 8mm, maybe 10mm stud. You would hold that on if you have a ratcheting wrench just have a regular wrench, you can do it that way as well. I have also took penetrant and sprayed it on there, and then we're also going to have to spray it on the wishbone here because we're not going to be able to have our axle pass through here. If we were on the front differential, which is what I'm eventually going to change in this, we don't really have to remove the axles. We would drop the differential down and then pop the axles out of the axle housing and put them back in before we put the differential back up, just as a side note. Now we've got our upper ball joint released. Very simple, just like I showed you before. Now we've got also a 24 millimeter socket on our lower wishbone. The hope is that we take this out, and then that gives us enough room to get the axle out once we pull the ball joint out, push the axle through, and then we'll pop out the axle. Now this nut was actually 13/16, but if you notice, it's supposed to have grabbers on there. I don't think it's supposed to spin. It's supposed to have some kind of locking tab on it, but it didn't work. So it was 13/16 or 21 millimeters was loose on there, but I was able to hold it with the 21 millimeter, just so you know. So before you're able to remove that bolt, you're gonna have to have a jack underneath there to jack it up to keep it centered, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on that and it's going to want to spring away from you. So jack it up, and then you'll be able to use a punch or something to push your bolt out. Keeping in mind when you're jacking this up, not to put too much pressure on it because it'll allow it to come back up this way, and put too little on there. You just basically jack it up to where that bolt, where you can take your other hand and move that bolt a little bit. You know, it'll still move stiff and you might still have to push it out with an awl or something, but it'll be a lot easier that way. Don't do too much pressure. Now with pressure still applied to your lower control arm, you're going to go ahead and take the 18 millimeter nut. You're going to work the nut off in the back, and if you can tell, mine's smoking. I had to use heat to heat this up, but if you're in a drier climate than we are in Michigan, you probably won't have that problem. And we're just going to disconnect it from here so the whole control arm can slide down. Okay, so now we're at the point where we need to release our axle from the transfer case, or the front differential, sorry. So we're going to take a pry bar and we're going to put it up in there, and I'm probably not going to be able to get it to release showing you guys on the camera, but you want to make sure that whatever you pry against has some girth. So you just don't want to pry against anything. But I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to try to give it a couple little sharp little pushes with both hands so I can make it real quick, and kind of just a little visual of that. So I got the pry bar, and I'm going to quick, jam it out of there. And then hopefully we can drop down the control arm far enough to be able to drop this part down far enough to be able to get the axle through the wishbone. Okay, I got a little bit too far ahead of myself. I should have took the axle out of the holder. How you're going to do that is you're going to pull it forward, so you're going to pull it down back this way, and then you're going to cock it to the front so you can push it back, and then so you can push it back that way a little bit, and then pull it this way, and then that'll allow the axle, when you try to pop out of there, it'll have space to go. Now we're getting close to getting this thing out of here, and I wanted to point something out. This locking ring, when you go to install this will snap into your differential there. When you go to take it out, it is perfectly acceptable to take a pry bar, and you'll get it up inside here, kind of at about this skew that I've got right here, and then you'll be able to hit that end with a mallet. You just want to be careful not to damage your casing. When you go to install this, now you can't have it locked into the sleeve, but it has to go all the way down. So make sure that you notice the correlation and the difference between your differential where you take it out and where it ends up landing. I highly recommend it that if you get it in there and it won't go in all the way, and you're trying to push it in there and it won't go in, do not hit on the rubber boot edge, okay, because you'll break it. Just pull it back out all the way, and then quick jam it in there one time, one pop. That's how they go. Be very, very careful of that. So in order to get that from underneath there, I put my pry bar in there just like that. And I got it up underneath that mount right there, and I pried it down. I'm sorry I couldn't make a video of it. Pried it down enough to sneak the center portion out. And that is how you remove an axle from the front end of a Jeep Grand Cherokee. Hopefully the video was helpful. Remember, if anybody else can do it, you can do it too. Like me on Facebook under Clay's AC and Auto Repair. Like my videos. Most of all, share and subscribe. Remember, don't be the next to them, be the first of you. God bless. Have a great day. Hey, good afternoon. This is Clay with Clay's AC and Auto Repair in Clay Motion here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you find this video to be helpful and informative, please like my video. Most of all, share and subscribe, and keep sending me them wonderful comments. I greatly appreciate you guys. That's why I keep doing it, because I keep getting great comments, and I do appreciate that. You should watch the whole video front to back before you actually try to attempt this at home, because I'm going to show you how, not only how to take it out, I'm going to show you how to use your sockets and tools to get the bolts out. So today we're going to do the front differential on a 2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now you'll notice that my axle is already out. You do not need to remove the axle to do this job, but I actually made a video of us doing that. So you shouldn't have to remove the axle like this axle is removed. We're actually just going to push the axles out once we drop the differential down. At least that is our intention. It's certainly going to be easier because I got my driver's side axle out, but my driver's side axle was actually bad. So we're going to start doing this task. Basically, this is a pretty simple job for the most part. There's probably some difficult bolts to get to, but there's not many bolts holding this front differential in. I don't think that we're going to actually have to remove this side, and I know for a fact, because I've done these axles before and took out these front differentials, that you don't have to remove the axles to do this job. I don't remember the particulars, and because I got my axle out on this side, I'm certain it's going to make it much simpler for me to get this differential out. So the first thing we're going to start with is removing the 4 axle bolts that hold in the transfer case drive shaft to the front differential, and they were 15s if I remember. Just spun it. Anyways, and I highly recommend you come in from back here. I used 12 inches of extension, and I came right to the back, and I left the drive shaft loose because I can spin it by hand and clock it to where it needs to be. If you're going to use a ratchet, it's going to be a little bit more difficult and cumbersome because you're not going to be able to spin them and they're not going to zip right out like they did. Literally took me about 40 seconds to get all 4 bolts out of this thing. So using an impact would be highly recommended in this job. And then we're going to take the front of it. We're going to give it a couple taps around here, which is going to knock the flange right off there. If it's been on there for a while, it's going to stay on there for a little bit, so it's going to be a little bit tough, but we'll just be able to tap it a little bit and knock it off of there, and it'll come right back, and it actually collapses, if I remember right, up inside there, so it should collapse in a little bit for you. Okay, so the reason that we're removing this front differential, if you're having problems with you having a vibration in your Jeep Grand Cherokee, and you want to know what it is, I'm almost going to guarantee you that the when I can see it and I can show it to you, that bushing right there, right up here, wish I could get some light on it, this bushing right there is bad. I changed them on almost every single Jeep Grand Cherokee that I have, and they are a pain in the butt. It's not that hard to get the differential out, but that bolt that holds it in there is the most difficult one to get out. Then you got this front flange right here, which sometimes goes bad. This bushing right here is easy to get out. And then the other one right there is fairly easy to get out. And then all we got to do is knock our axle out of there, and this thing comes right out. But like I said, I'm going to show you how to get that bolt out, because that's the most important one. So I tackled the hardest bolt first, which required a 15 millimeter on this side behind the exhaust. I've got approximately 15 inches of extension here. And now in my case, and I doubt if you're doing this in your driveway, in your case, that you're going to have heat like I did. I heated up the nut where this 18 millimeter wrench is pried up against the oil pan. I first loosened up the bolt itself, and then the nut started spinning. And the reason that I did that is because it's probably stuck inside the barrel of your mount right there. So heat was definitely a contributing factor in this situation. Penetrant didn't work. And now that I've got the bolt loose, I can take it out. Okay, so now I went to remove this bolt. You'll notice it's still in there. 15 millimeter in the front and 18 millimeter nut on the back side. Then I took two 17 millimeter bolts out from here, which released this mount. Now I'm going to support my front differential and remove my 2 bolts. You're going to have a little bit of fluid that's going to come out, so you're going to want to catch that with something. And then it's all downhill from here. Once we get it down a little bit, we're going to be able to shift it and we're going to knock this axle out. Probably end up doing that with a hammer because the flange is so much larger. Now that we got the differential all loose and we got all our bolts taken out, up in the very front here, up around the top side, there's a hose, and you just pull the hose off. It's up in the very front there. Okay, like I said earlier, we're just going to take a hammer and tap on that, and that'll come right out. Make sure when you go to put that back in, you pay attention to the link on how it goes in there, because it's going to be a little bit harder to snap in both sides if you're just doing the differential and you didn't have that in there. Make sure that they're snapped in tightly. It's very, very crucial. And I say that because I've literally seen people that don't put these all the way in snap this off of the end of the axle right here, and then you can't get the stinking thing to stay in there, and it's going to always wobble. So make sure it snaps in correctly. Now we're going to go ahead and lower our differential out of here, and we're going to start replacing our boot, which is the reason we took the differential out. Okay, so this differential was replaced, and it was replaced with a used unit. I doubt that, judging by the amount of work that's been done to this vehicle with the brand new transfer case that it has and stuff like that, I doubt very highly that this was not replaced by a good place. I think this just went bad after that. But if you see, this is the reason that we're changing it. You can see how it flip-flops inside there, and that's what's causing the vibration. And that's going to give you a vibration in your drivetrain. It's going to be hard to figure out and hard to isolate. But if you look for this, you're more than likely going to find it. So this pretty much concludes the video for the disassembly of the transfer case. I'm going to add a video up of transfer case front differential. I'm going to add to this video and show us actually replacing that, or give you the how to do it. So I hope the video was helpful. Please send me your nice comments, like my videos, most of all subscribe, share my videos. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up on Clay's AC and Auto Repair under Facebook. And remember, don't be the next to them, be the first to you. If anyone else can do it, you can do it too. God bless you. Have a great day. Okay, so now with the differential out, we can get to our bad bushing that's here. I want to pay particular attention. This is actually clocked, and it's going to come out from that way this way. I'm not quite certain how to get this out yet, but I'm going to explain it to you. It's not going to come out easy. I'm going to explain that to you because I've done quite a few of these. I just can't. Just every time you do it a little bit different way. But we're going to push it out from this way to that way. First thing I did was I took a spade bit on my air hammer and I blew out the center of this, and now I'm going to make a cut mark down through here, and then if that doesn't push it out, I'm going to take a Sawzall and cut it this way. So you could probably do that as well, and then we'll show you how to install it. I think the installation is just going to be a matter of having to press. So now I've got a center line ripped in it, and I can start taking my air tool and pushing it out of there. So now I've got this edge curled up. I went to my other edge and I was able to hopefully just push it way out of there. And bazing. Now we'll take a file, we'll clean up these marks that we made, and then we'll press the new one in. Okay, so now you can take a socket like this, a deep well like axle socket, maybe. I don't know if the 36 millimeter that we used for the thing would be better. And just the hammer, tap her in, drive her home, make sure she's squared. So I hope the video ended up being helpful for you guys. Remember, if any other man can do it, you can do it too. Don't be the next to them, be the first to you. Subscribe and share to my page, share my videos. Please like, send me your nice comments. I greatly appreciate you guys. You guys have made it a blast to be able to teach people stuff with all the wonderful comments and the good subscribers I get. Till next time, have a great day.